Hello, I'm Matthew Meng, and welcome to the 1017 Initiative. Tonight is Wisdom Wednesday, and I'm going to share one of my favorite verses. Actually, two of my favorite passages that maybe you haven't ever combined before, but I'm sure both you've heard many, many times, and maybe not heard them in this particular way, but hopefully it's encouraging. And then when I'm finished, I'll share a song that is actually the first song I ever wrote, or one of the first songs I ever wrote. But let me first start with the scripture, and that's the first is in Proverbs, and it's very well known, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I have grown up hearing this verse and seeing it plastered on cups and shirts and you name it. I've heard people quote it in good times and bad times, but the thing about it is I've always heard it as an if-then statement. In other words, if you trust in the Lord, then he will direct your paths. And that's kind of how I always thought about it until recently when I was looking at it and realized, wait a minute, there's no if and then. It's do this and God will do this. Just like the covenants that he used to make with Israel. It was, you do these, keep my laws, my commandments, and I will do this. There was never a, if you do this, God will do that. It's always, you do this part, and God will do this part. But the thing is, he remains faithful regardless of whether we're faithful in that. But the reason I bring that up, and the reason I point that out, is it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." Oftentimes in my life, I've looked at, when I'm praying often, when I'm going to church, when I'm reading my Bible frequently, when I'm doing the right things, I'm trusting in the Lord, I'm depending on him. But my expectation is, God, you will do the things that I want you to do. Instead of recognizing, you know what, he says he'll direct my paths. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll lead me down the path that I want to go. Because in Psalm 23, he says he's going to lead us in paths of righteousness. But he also says that he'll lead us through the valley of the shadow of death. In both places he's leading. In both places he's directing our steps. But one we like. The other one, not so much. The difference is this, though. If I'm trusting in the Lord and I'm leaning not on my own understanding, and in everything I'm acknowledging him, I'm acknowledging his lordship and the fact that he is directing me, and I know that he's directing me, then when the things come, when the troubles come, when the trials come, it shouldn't cause me to fear and to doubt and to worry. Now, I say this more as an admonition to myself. In fact, just yesterday, I was going through some struggles and some doubts and some worries. Things weren't going quite the way that I wanted or how I expected or anticipated, and I was struggling. I was frustrated. I was dealing with depression and anger and fear and worry and stress and all these different things. And through it all, the Lord was still directing my steps. At the end of the day, he still had me where he wanted me, doing what he wanted me to be doing. The difference was how smoothly it was going for me. Have you ever noticed when you have a good attitude about something, or you believe fully that things will work out, how much peace that brings, how much joy that brings, how much rest that brings to you? Whereas when you are worried, or you're doubting, or you're afraid because things aren't going the way you anticipated or expected, it makes it that much harder to get through it. The other verse that I wanted to read, or other passage I wanted to read actually, is over in Psalms, and it's actually Psalm 1. And it says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper." Now, I want to point that out simply because just over here, we are talking about trusting in the Lord in everything acknowledging him. And here in Psalms, it's saying, "Blessed is the man whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree." Does that not sound like trust in the Lord with all your heart? Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him. Delight in the law of the Lord. And in his law he meditates day and night. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. But see, the thing is, he directs the paths of the righteous and the unrighteous. The Bible talks about the fact that God is the one who directs even kings. He talks about how he set up and appointed Pharaoh for his purposes, that he might show his glory in the earth. It talks about how he raises up rulers and he puts them into place. It talks about how over and over and over, even when men and women of God were in sin, he still was directing their paths. So take Jonah, for example. Jonah decides, "God, I'm not going to listen to you about your command to go to Nineveh. I'm going to run the other direction." Even there, God was directing his steps as he got on the boat, as he set sail, as he was out in the water. God was with him every step of the way. He had him exactly where he wanted him, exactly where he needed him to be dropped out of that boat, picked up by a fish, and brought back to shore. You see, ultimately, he will direct our steps. But at the end of the day, if we're not trusting in him, if we're not acknowledging him and acknowledging the fact that he is directing my steps, it's going to be significantly harder. There's another verse where it talks about, don't be like the horse who has to have a bit put in his mouth to direct him. The Lord wants to be able to direct our steps with his eye. In other words, so easy that he can just look the direction he wants us to go, and we'll go. There's no fight, there's no resistance, there's no arguing, there's no fear or worry or trepidation, because our trust is in him to do exactly what he said and exactly what he's promised. Our trust is in the fact that he says all things work together for good to those that love the Lord and are called according to his purposes. Now again, I'm talking as one who just yesterday was struggling with this, so please don't take this as, hey, Matthew's got it all figured out and worked out and he's doing it perfectly, and wow, look at Matthew's faith, because honestly, my faith sucked yesterday. But I wanted to encourage myself and encourage you with that verse to trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Don't worry about what you see, because what you don't see is more real than the things that you see. The one you don't see, who's ordering every single step you take, he is more real and more powerful and more capable than any circumstance you face right now. And he wants you to know that, and he wants you to submit to that. He wants you to acknowledge that so that you will have blessing, so that you will be blessed and take delight in him and take delight in his instruction. And when you do, if you do, you will be like a tree planted by rivers of water that bring forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf shall not wither, and whatever you do will prosper. You see, I've never seen a tree that's planted by a river that's striving to produce green leaves and fruit. In fact, I've never seen a tree strive, period. When you lean upon the Lord, when you trust in the Lord, He's going to direct your paths regardless, because He is faithful. He is who He is. He will direct your paths. But when you trust in the Lord, blessing follows. And that blessing, actually, the word there for blessing in Psalms is to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be content. Blessed is the man, happy is the man whose delight is the law of the Lord, and in it he meditates day and night. So I just want to encourage you with that. I want to play this song, and for those of you who know me and have been around me a while, you'll probably be familiar with this song. For those of you who hadn't, I hope it's encouraging, and I'm playing it as much for my own admonition as for yours. So yeah, hope you enjoy it. See your beauty all around, standing in your presence on holy ground. Your glory fills the air. I catch a glimpse of heaven, and I'm longing to be there. Send me, I will do what you tell me to, 'cause you are my Redeemer, my provider, and I'm trusting in you. Oh, I'm trusting in you. With matchless splendor, all I can do is bow before you, and I will go where you send me. I will do what you tell me to. I will go where you send me. I will do what you tell me to, 'cause you are my Redeemer, my provider, and I'm trusting in you. Oh, I'm trusting in you. Yes, I'm trusting in you. Lord, I'm trusting in you. Well, that's it for tonight. I hope you're encouraged. I hope that this causes you to think more about the fact that He's going to direct your steps, with or without your faith, with or without your trust, with or without you believing that He's going to direct your steps. He will direct your steps. But when you're trusting, when you're putting your hope and your faith in Him, you will find peace and joy that you can't imagine and that you can't fathom. And I speak this from experience when I am putting my trust in him, and from experience when I'm not. The difference. So I just want to encourage you tonight, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your steps. Thanks for joining. Tune in next time, and I hope to hear from you. Please leave some comments and send me some likes if you happen to listen to it, and share it with your friends. Thanks, and have a blessed week.